Hi there, I'm Sandy Allnock, artist and paper crafter here on YouTube with some no-line Copic fall flowers. All week I am sharing a whole bunch of videos on coloring fall flowers because we are almost at fall. So there you go. And I'm using the Stamp Markets stamp called the Friendly Bunch. You can see how big it is compared to my hands. It's a giant stamp, which is kind of nice having all the flowers grouped together already for you. You don't have to do any masking in order to get the leaves and the flowers and everything in there. You can turn the stamp every which way to try to get it stamped in the orientation that you want. And I've got it stamped in some neutral ink, and it's a dye ink. It's a very old pad, and the pad is dry, which means it took me like 4 times to stamp this to get this much ink on the paper, which is perfectly fine with me for no-line coloring because I don't want much ink. I want to be able to draw right over top of it with my Copic markers and just completely cover it up so that I can then make all the marks that I want with my markers and not worry about having lines there. And then it looks like I actually drew the flowers, which is always kind of fun to fool your family and friends. And they think that you drew this. I'm putting just a basic light coat of color over the whole thing, and now I'll slow it down a little bit just to do one petal, and then we'll zoom through some of the rest. So I wanted fall flowers because this is actually, I think, a dogwood. I don't even think this is just a normal kind of spring flower because it looks like dogwood to me, but it's art, so we can make it any color we want. So I'm going to make orange flowers, and I'm using progressively darker colors, richer colors. This is an RV66, which I haven't really tried too much. But I've been looking for a color that works along with my V04 so that the shadow is in that darker color and the V04 then makes a nice transition into the lighter colors. And this one worked really, really well. I was very pleased with it. But I'm drawing the veins of the flower that I've decided to draw going along that same direction of the whole flower. It's just kind of going to curve out around to the edge. And then I'm leaving some of the edges, that edge at the very top, I left it light, so then it's going to look like that petal is curled a little bit. And you can do this with watercolor and all kinds of things by just layering the colors and slowly building them up. But for Copic markers, it works really nicely to do this. But sped up, it's really fun to watch these things, even though I know it's probably driving some people crazy. You want to see me color the same petals over and over and over again. But go back and watch that one petal. I'm using the same 2 purples in order to make the shading, and then going over it with a little yellow so that I can smooth that out. For the insides of the flowers, I added just a few lines of some green and then used some black to make the little center bits, just to add some contrast to it. And then I decided to add a little bit of a blue violet to add a little extra shadow. Now that I had that black in there, it felt like I needed a little more contrast. So I'm just putting a touch of the BV00. I kind of wanted to go BV01 or 02, but I thought you guys might freak out, so I kept it at the 00. Because the blue violet is going to add just a little bit more of that contrast, even more than the V04 and that RV. So now I'm going to zoom around and do all the other petals on these flowers. And I will talk about, in the meantime, what I'm doing this week on the blog, because we have lots of flower stamps. I don't know about you guys, but I have a lot of flower stamps. I don't even like flowers all that much. I know you like flowers, and I like to teach you what you like to learn, so I do buy a lot of flower stamps. And yes, I do buy my stamps. I don't tend to take freebies because then it makes me feel like I have to use things, and I don't like to feel like I'm selling something and pushing something on you that I wouldn't already have bought. And so I buy pretty flowers and color them all the time. I'm just not a fan of coloring flowers. I like coloring unique things, and it feels like coloring flowers is just the same coloring flowers all the time. But this whole week, what I'm doing is taking some of these flower stamps that I have been hoarding all summer. I shouldn't say hoarding. I've been coloring them and practicing and having fun with them on my own. But it's turning to fall, and we're going to stop doing the flowers really shortly. So I wanted to get them all out, and having the excuse of having a whole week full of flower videos seemed like a good thing. And I know lots of you love to color flowers, so there you have it. I love to do things that make you happy, and therefore I am coloring lots of flowers, doing a bunch of different techniques. I'll do another Copic one. I've got some watercolor planned and some pencil, of course. Lots of fun techniques so that you can both use these for some fall flowers, so you can make some cards still using some of these spring stamps. So even something like this one that is pretty clearly, to me, it looks like dogwood and would only be used in the spring, you can change it into something else and use it later on. You can make these beautiful white flowers and give them red centers, or make them red flowers and give them gold centers, and make them a holiday, like a Christmas type of card, that sort of thing. So you don't have to always just stick to what the stamp is. And especially when you're doing something like no-line coloring, this is your opportunity to change things up. So if you're going to try to turn these into a flower that's similar but not the same, you could actually look up the leaves on that flower and see what's the difference in the shapes of the leaves. With no-line coloring, you can cover up those lines and change them into something completely different if you want. So what I'm doing here is taking a darker green and adding some veins. You can use the stamp package that has the images printed on it and follow that, because if you did like I did, you can see that the stamp lines are mostly covered up, and you can change them up or leave them the same as they are in the stamp. And I left that one at the bottom because I was going to be dealing with the smile sentiment. And when you have a sentiment like that that's stamped right into the image itself, it poses a few challenges. So I'm going to deal with that when I get to it. But I'm using my favorite YG9 combinations for my leaves because I love this combination of colors. They're not as bright as I know a lot of people do tend to like, but they're much more realistic, and I love my realism. So I am doing some simple strokes in order to add my darker color, and notice that I'm letting the outside of the leaves just kind of disappear. I'm not making a dark shadow around the edge, because for me the impact is in the flowers. The leaves are the supporting actor, and whenever you've got a supporting actor on your image, you want to let that actor take second place, second stage, and allow the main thing to be the main thing. So I wanted the flowers and then that big smile to be the main thing. So I switched to a lighter green. So this time the really dark part of the veins is that YG95, the mid-tone color for everything else, and I'm using a second layer of YG91 for the rest of that leaf. So it remains light in the background behind the word smile and leaves it much more readable. The last thing on the rest of the leaves to finish off is taking my YG95 to create a little more detail and add a little more interest to some of the other parts of the branches. And you can add lots more branches once you get used to drawing these leaves by tracing over what the stamp designer has used. Now you know how to draw leaves, so you can add more if you wish. If there's a spot that you find is just really blank on your card, you can add another one in. And now I had the issue with the word smile, that it was not standing out enough. It was not powerful enough. You can stamp the word smile afterward if you want, but then it doesn't allow you to work through the colors that are behind it the way I did with that leaf at the bottom. It doesn't allow you to do that, because you could end up creating a leaf that you can't stamp over top of, or that you have to stamp in black in order to make it stand out. And I didn't want that, so that's why I stamped it in the first place. I believe it was an MFT ink, but I didn't write down which one it was that I used. I apologize for that. But I'm using two different greens to make a transitional color, going from the top being darker and the bottom being lighter. And when you've got a big heavy sentiment like this and that sort of thing, you can get your Copic marker in there to color right over top of it. I still didn't have enough darkness at the very top, right where the flowers were, so I'm going over actually with a little bit of C8 to add just a little more contrast on the parts of the letters that go right over top of that orange. To finish off the card, I trimmed it down so I have a nice border around the outside edges and stamped a secondary sentiment. Today is a good day. Stamped it incorrectly. I stamped it kind of crooked off to the left. It was not centered on that little panel. And rather than recentering it, I tied a piece of twine around one side to distract people from the fact that I did not have it centered. So now that's probably all you can see, right? I shouldn't have fessed up to that one. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something from it. If you did, click the like button, share it with your friends, and I will see you guys again tomorrow for another in the Fall Flowers series. So make sure you stay tuned. See you then. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.